All right, class, hey, here's lesson 2. Let me share my screen. Let's do a slideshow. Right from the start. Talk about income statements, balance sheets, and budgets. Good stuff. Balance sheets and income statements. What's a balance sheet? Essentially a balance sheet. I'll give you the difference between a balance sheet and an income statement. Balance sheet is a financial statement that describes a person or business's financial statement at any given time. It's a snapshot that can be taken at any time for any individual or company. So let's say your balance sheet, let's say I give you $100 and you go and you spend it on $20 of it. Basically, you had 80 or 100, now you have 80. Your balance sheet is basically you have $80, right? And what do you have to show for that? You have your 20 that you spent it on, right? So you have 80 that you had, 20 that you spent it on. At the bottom it will balance, but that would be 100. So essentially your balance sheet is a snapshot. A person can do a balance sheet at any time. A business can do a balance sheet at any time. That's just a real good indication of how solid financially a company or a person is at any given time. An income statement measures financial performance over a given period of time. So that would be, instead of you getting $100 and you go out and you spend it, that would be all of the activity over a certain period of time. So let's say you want to do an income statement for a week, for a month, for a quarter, for a year, for 6 months. The most common income statements are either quarters, like every quarterly or every 3 months, or annual income statements. Once again, balance sheet is how your finances look at one specific moment. Income statement is how your finances or companies look over a period of time. Okay. Here's the components or parts of a balance sheet. You have your assets, your liabilities, and your net worth. We won't go too deep into these kind of things, but it's good for you to know these things. Once again, this class, the purpose of this class is to give you some good habits and kind of expose you to better money management tools. But you kind of need to know some of this stuff. So 1 assets, 2 liabilities, 3 net worth. What are assets? That's just what you own. It's the stuff that you own. Hold on, I think I'm going to sneeze here. Oh, bless me. Excuse me. Assets are what you own. Those could be liquid assets, like we talked about. What are liquid assets again? That's right. I think somebody said it. Those are things that can be turned into cash. Either already are cash or can be turned into cash fast. It could be, your cash. It could be money in your checking account, savings account, money market funds, those kind of things. And then, so if you seek assets, what are your liabilities? That's what that's what you owe. That is what's outstanding, and not outstanding in a good way. Outstanding in a financial or fiscal sense is not good. So I mean that's what you owe. I mean, it's debt. It can be. We'll talk about a little bit more about how to balance debt too. And then your net worth is the difference between your assets and your liabilities. You take your assets, subtract your liabilities, boom. That's what you get. That's your net worth. Pretty easy, huh? Here's a type of assets again. We talked about this in lesson 1. Lesson 2 is liquid assets. Once again, it can be converted to cash. Investments, the goal is to make money on these and get a return. You know what? You're going to put something in, if this is, I'll expose you to this now, probably say it again. This is an important concept. Like I said, if you can get one little nugget out of every time I yap in my mouth that you didn't know before, that's good. Investment, the goal is to make a return. If you invest your money in the stock market and you get a 10% return, okay, meaning you put in $100 at the end of the year, you get a 10% return, which means for doing absolutely nothing, I mean, you got to manage a little bit, or sometimes a lot. You put that $100 in, and then at the end of the year, it's now worth $110. It's a 10% return. Or if you put in 1,000, and then at the end of the year, it's worth $1,100, which is a 10% return. If you did that and if you took $1,000 and you got 10% after year 1, it would be $1,100. Then you make another 10% after year 2, another 10% after year 2. That's compounding That's the concept of compounding. We'll get into compounding interest later. If you do over 7 years, that $1,000 will be worth $2,000 with doing nothing, right? That's without that. That's at $1,000. Imagine if you had $10,000 or $100,000, and imagine if you're putting more money in as you're going. So that's the point of investments, right? Make that money work for you. You work your butt off. Make that money work for you. And then type of assets, real property, which is, and that's called the law of seven, or rule of seven. Then there's real property. Once again, that's immovable property. When you hear real property, once again, think real property, real estate, immovable property, land, house, anything fixed to a land, essentially. And then personal property, which is essentially movable property, something you can pick up and it's movable or portable. Fair market value, not original retail price. This is used to determine, we'll talk about this more, to determine value of personal property. You always want to think, my dad was always the worst at this. He always thought everything that he had was worth so much more. I mean, there are some things that, that are collectibles, investments, that will be worth more, but for most things, you buy something at, a year, 3 years ago. Let's say you bought a laptop 3 years ago, and then it gets stolen. They're going to give you the fair market value, that's the concept of depreciation. So it goes down in value. So you'll get the fair market value, which is the current what that product is currently worth, even though it's 3 years old, not what a new one would sell essentially today. Balance sheet formula. You're going to take your total assets are equal to total assets equals your total liabilities plus your net worth. We won't have to do any problems like this, don't worry. Or your net worth is worth your total assets minus total liabilities. We did that basically here. It's a difference between your assets and liabilities, which is the bottom on the net worth. But to figure out what your total assets are worth, you just take your total liabilities, add up your total net worth, and that's why it balances. All three of these numbers should work together and balance, right? Your assets, your liabilities, and your net worth. And net worth is just the same as equity. So just to know what that means, in equity would be like, that's once again, that's like a compounding kind of concept. Or equity, you hear equity used a lot in homes. Like how much you bought a house for $500,000 and now it is worth $600,000. That just means you have $100,000 in equity. You made $100,000 without doing anything. I mean, you're making the payments, of course, maybe doing some upkeeps, and sometimes you make some improvements that adds to increasing the value of the home. But if you buy a house for 500 and it ends up being worth 600,000, then you buy for 500,000 and it's worth 600,000. The equity in that is 100,000, which is pretty good. Insolvency, that's a good concept right here. That's when you owe more than you are worth. Your liabilities or what you owe outweigh your assets. What's that stupid saying that your butt wrote a check that your mouth can't cash? Or I forgot, I screwed that up. Anyway, that is microeconomics too. We're going to talk about microeconomics in the first lesson. Is don't spend more than you owe. When you spend more than you owe, that's your liabilities. They outweigh your assets. So insolvency is bad. You don't want to be insolvent. But don't shame people, in who do end up that way. For the most part, people do, and families, they're trying to make the best decisions for themselves and their families at that given time. So it's very easy to money shame people, but try not to do it. How to calculate a balance sheet? You're going to list your assets at fair market value, list all your current and long-term liabilities, and then you're going to calculate your net worth. We'll kind of get that more of that. Income statement, this just basically shows what you've earned and how you spent your money over a period of time. That'll be very detailed about all the different categories in an income statement. Solvency ratio, your total net worth divided by your total assets. So you can put your net worth on top and your assets on the bottom. Remember how to get your total net worth? It's going to be your assets minus your liabilities. Don't worry, you don't have to do this in an exam or anything. How how much that just basically shows how much cushion or safety you have to protect yourself against insolvency. You want this number to be positive. Okay. And the lower the number, the greater probability you can't pay off your debt. Liquidity ratio. This is a good one. You take your total liquid assets divided by your total current debts. That's your ability to pay your current debts. That's how much liquidity you have. So let's say you lost your job today, figure out what your liquidity ratio is. That's how long you could live without having to maintain or change your lifestyle at all. Okay. How many months you can go on your current liquid assets if an emergency occurs. I just basically said that. Pay off your current debt obligations without getting outside help, also known as a current ratio in business. Number in the ones is good. Savings ratio, your cash surplus over your income after taxes. That indicates how much surplus cash you have. I don't want to worry about that one. Debt service ratio, total monthly loan payments over your monthly gross income, determines the ability to pay debts promptly. That's a big one when you get loans. They want to make sure that that you're paying off your loans in a timely manner. Ooh, that reminds me, I have a credit card payment to make. That's it. All right. More stuff to come.